So we have revisiting the living system dynamics and borrowing concepts of Vedic origin. The author of this talk are Dr. Jaynarayan Tudu and Dheeraj Dube. So let me quickly read a short introduction about the speaker today, Mr. Dheeraj Dube. Dheeraj Dube is a doctoral researcher at the Center of Interdisciplinary Sciences, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, TIFR, Hyderabad. He obtained his BTech in Mechanical Engineering from IIT BHU, Varanasi. Sorry, can we mute? Yeah, thank you. So he obtained his BTech in Mechanical Engineering from IIT BHU, Varanasi from 2010-2014. His research interests include biomacromolecules and their complex transition in biological systems, principle of drug designing, and computational physics. He works in deciphering the measured modes of fluctuations guided by the chemical propensities of the interacting species behind the nucleating precursor large-scale macromolecular transition events. He is keenly interested in the interface of theoretical biology and the principle of Ayurvedic sciences. Also recently, he has finished his PhD and joined as a postdoc in UC San Diego, where he is continuing his research. So we can also call him Dr. Dheeraj Dube. So I'd like to welcome him for this talk, and the floor is all yours.
So yeah, so the topic that I have chosen is revisiting the living system dynamics. So even before starting my talk, I would just like to introduce this concept of interdisciplinary sciences. Basically, we are familiar with this concept very recently. This has been a very commonly used term in research scenario. And so as a byproduct of this, as a product of this, you can say a fashion of research, we have many different areas coming up like mechanobiology and biomedical engineering, and there are many other disciplines that have come up as a combination. Like one more combination that I would like to mention is computational neurobiology. And similarly, on a similar line, it is possible for us to introduce this concept of inter-Vedic disciplinary sciences. But whenever we start talking about borrowing concepts of Vedic origin, one of the scientific community suddenly has a sense of criticism and skepticism, which is not very illegitimate. But yeah, the first two parts of my talk, I would just try to I would try to clear what are those major reasons because of which this barrier we face in order to while the barrier we face while introducing concepts from Vedic origin. So one of the reason that we can see is basically the epistemological reason, the epistemological differences in the two disciplines, the modern science and the ancient Vedic knowledge system. What I would like to present in this part is, even though the two disciplines are very or the two knowledge systems are very are quite opposite in their methodology of receiving knowledge, but still they do share certain similarity. And taking advantage of those similarity, we can come up with a unified, a grand kind of a mid ground between the two, and come up with a new research, a new way of doing research. So the first, so I would like to start off with this definition of knowledge according to Plato, which is basically any fact or any declaration that you have. It should be justified, it should be true, and and uh, and people should be able to believe in it. So I would like to begin with pointing out that in the Vedic scenario, the method of receiving knowledge is called descending process, where you have an authority, an authority from which you receive your knowledge. And while in case of the prevalent research, uh, the research method, we have the method that we follow can be called as ascending process. So so yeah, so I would like to start off with this belief part. So uh, in case of the Vedic epistemology, we can see that the most trusted source of knowledge is called Shabda, where you receive knowledge from an authority. And some similarity can be drawn between this Shabda and the research papers that we have in our in our research community, the peer-reviewed and published research papers. The beginner or a person who beginning a research is supposed to have the same sort of reverence and belief in this research papers as one is supposed to have in the Shabda source in the Vedic system of receiving knowledge. Then the second source of receiving knowledge uh, in the Vedic scenario is this Anuman, and it is supposed to be supported by Shabd. The knowledge that we receive from the authority, the knowledge that we receive from the Anuman, they should have they should have agreement between them. And while the second stage of a research in the ascending process is supposed to be of hypothesizing or coming up with or searching for new directions of research uh, which were previously untouched. So this is basically the second stage in the current in the prevalent research work. Similarly, the third source of knowledge that we have in Vedic system of knowledge is Pratyaksha, which is again supposed to be supported by the Anuman and the Shabda. While in case of the modern research methodology, we have this validation and experimentation and evidence-based studies, where based on what is the system that we are studying. We have these three sources that we have to depend on for the validation of our knowledge. So if we try to summarize the modern way of doing research, we can come up with this idea, where we start off with research literature, then we start hypothesizing and theorizing new concepts, and then we test and experiment those ideas, and then we finally publish them. And this goes on as a cycle. So because of this being an ascending process, uh, it has to be a cyclic process, because there is always a chance of certain direction or certain areas that are still left behind. So there is always an idea of revisiting of concepts that is always allowed in the current way of doing research. What I would like to point out is, following this current scenario, or following this current situation, we can introduce some knowledge from the Shabda area, or the conclusive knowledge that is given in our scriptures, and we can treat them as the published research literature to begin our research with. So but then there is still uh, some problem that we face in doing this, and uh, the reason for those problems, I would like to regard them as these differences in the jargons that we that we study in the two disciplines, the modern science and the Vedic disciplines. There is a particular system of and system of or a way of looking at reality that we have in modern science, which is quite different from the one that we have in Vedic knowledge system. So I would like to begin with the way we look at reality in the Vedic scenario. So you have these three realms: the gross realm, the subtle realm, and the spiritual realm. So you have these three different knowledge area dealing with these three different realms. Modern science, if we try to ignore all the differences in the way modern science studies reality and the way a Vedic scholar would study reality, we can to some extent draw parallel between the modern science and the subject area of modern science would be the gross realm that we study in that we study in the Vedic sciences. And modern science has its own way to deal with this gross realm. Like uh, like in case of gross realm, we have these five elements in case when studying it through the eyes of Vedic scriptures, the earth, air, water, fire, ether, which are basically principles of nature. But modern science has some 118 elements, which are to be more precise, in terms of Sanskrit language, we should call them as Rasainik Tattva. So these are the differences that we have, the way modern science studies, and this is one of the very like this is one of the reasons why we are not able to connect the two domains. But still, there are some common two disciplines. Like in case of modern science, in modern science, we have this difference between organic and inorganic matter. So modern science also has this way of differentiating between the organic and inorganic matter. Organic matter is something that would manifest the properties of life, which we do not see in the inorganic matter. Similarly, even in the Vedic system of knowledge, we have these we have to study this organic matter in terms of kapha, pitta, and vat. Kapha would be like something that would come from earth and water element, and pitta would be something that would be coming from water and fire element, and vat is a lighter element, which would be coming from the space and air. So this slide basically shows the direction of increasing subtleness, where as we move from kapha, pitta, and towards vat, the subtleness of the matter increases. So yeah, so I would like to introduce like some of the topics that are commonly studied in both the disciplines. Like we yeah, this is the uh, so this slide basically shows the important function of intake of nutrients, which is basically performed by various ion channels and many other channels that are present on the cells, on the surface of the cells, which perform this important function of intaking of nutrients, pushing out the waste material, and obstructing any toxins inside the cell. So if we try to study the biology behind the vat, it is quite we can connect this. Vat is actually responsible for this intake and the and the and the excretion principle that is happening inside the cells, inside the living cells. Similarly, if we try to study the biology behind pitta, the pitta functionality is basically to the transformation of nutrients into useful components. Any living system does require these two important functionality: the transformation of nutrients into useful components and preparing the waste that is supposed to be thrown out of the living system. So the if we try to study the biology behind pitta, these are the major functionalities that are performed by pitta, and we do study these functionalities in biophysics, uh, even at the computational level. We do study these things. Similarly, the third element, which is kapha, which is actually responsible for storage of useful material for the future use by the body. So this is one of the research work that has been like taken up by our lab, the lab in which I work currently. And in so I was just wanted to share this, that uh, this is one of the systems that we deal with, where actually protein, which is called apolipoprotein E, which actually performs this important function of regulating the level of various cholesterol, the good cholesterol and the bad cholesterols. And so this also does a kind of storage in the system. The in the lymph system, these various cholesterols are maintained or stored, you can say. Although the storing is not happening in a particular location of the body, but it's happening in a particular circuit that is operating inside our body, which is important for the metabolism of lipids and fats. So I just wanted to point out that we do have such systems being studied in our biophysical scenario, computationally, and it is possible to some extent to connect that with the with the concepts from the Ayurveda. And yeah, so in this slide, I just wanted to present this grand integration approach. So in this approach, so this was originally like already this way of doing research is already prevalent. The experimental biophysicists, they come up with certain system which they want to explore. Then based on the scale of the system that they study, the various disciplines of science take up the study, like the biology or the biophysics, or the people from chemistry area or people from physics area. They have this they take up the problem. Like one of the research that my lab is involved in is like connecting the physics and the biophysics of the experimental systems that are being explored. So we make use of the quantum mechanics in order to get the various or calculate the various force fields that are operating between the atoms. Then we make use of classical and statistical mechanics to simulate the system. And then after we have the simulation, we make use of the data, and we intake that data into this data analysis machine, where we make use of various machine learning techniques to study the system. So like we had been doing this experimental biophysics, we can also take input from the Ayurvedic systems and try to study those systems in the current state of the art method. And using this, so this is one of the slide which actually I could come up with some discussions I had with our professor Sudipto Ghosh. It was his idea that we should be studying this Ayurvedic medicinal compositions through the eyes of computational molecular biophysics. And also we should try to explore the mechanism through which the disease involved and the Ayurvedic medicines work using the current state-of-the-art machine learning and artificial intelligence techniques. The closest to his heart problem that Professor Sudipto Ghosh had was of this inquiry into the origin of life. So these are like some of the ideas which he wanted to explore. So life is supposed to be is considered as something that comes out of based only on matter, like based on matter. And this is something that should be revisited, and making use of this plan that we have, we can do certain research and come up with the idea that life actually is not something that comes from matter, but it is actually something separate from matter, animating the matter. And these are the various levels in which we can approach this question. So we have these simple molecules like CO2, CH4, H2, H2O, giving rise to certain very simple amino acids. This is a very famous Miller experiment, Stanley Miller experiment. It is very crucial that we also try to visit this question, whether we can come up with the polymers purely based on these biomonomers, or do we have some other structures of polymers coming out of these monomers which are not seen in nature but are possible and are more stable. If that is the scenario, then we should also ask a question where what is actually making a lesser stable system to be chosen by the nature and not more stable structure. Similarly, we can also we should also revisit this question of whether we can also come up with a protocell or a very simple structure of cell based on only starting with only the biopolymers. So all these things we can do using this grand integration approach that I just now mentioned. And yeah, that's it.
Yes, thank you so much. Now I would like to welcome participants with their questions. Please raise your hand or write it in the chat. Yes, we have a question from Aristotle Moti Nandiji. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, Dr. Dube, for your presentation. I have a question about the beginning of your presentation where you talked about Plato and
Yeah.
his definition of knowledge as justified through belief, and then
Yes,
you
yes.
talked about the three Vedic elements about Shabda, Anumana, and Pratyaksha, which is basically revealed knowledge as well as inference and empirical knowledge. But I was just puzzled that I just curious about how you mentioned that the that true or the validity of something is based on or what is a fact is based on empirical knowledge. Is that what you said actually in your presentation?
uh, I didn't get your question. Can you
Okay,
please
because
simplify?
you have justified truth, belief, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so you put belief as Shabda, and you talked about justified as Anumana, and you talk about true as Pratyaksha. If you look at that circle, I think in your second or third slide where you showed.
Correct. Yeah, I can share the slide actually.
Yeah, maybe you could share the slide. That would be good.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, is this the slide or is this a slide that you're
No, the
talking
next,
about?
I think later on. This.
Yeah,
Correct.
okay.
Okay, so I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
yeah.
So that means are you saying that actually by empirical knowledge that would establish the truth of something?
We have to undergo this process of testing and experimentation, or you can say the validation of our hypothesis. So what I wanted to say in this, like when a person starts, he is supposed to undergo, he or she is supposed to undergo this literature review, and then he or she is supposed to undergo or point out the various areas which are not still touched, and come up with certain or even if the area is touched but have a different, if the researcher has a different opinion or different theory or a better theory, so there has to be certain hypothesis and theory behind those. Those theory and hypothesis needs to be tested, and then of course, then that has to be communicated and peer reviewed before it finally gets into the literature, into the research literature.
So just
So
a quick
this
follow-up
was what I
question.
wanted to point out.
Just a quick follow-up on that. But we can see that the hypothesis and the findings keep changing, right, over time. So what was established as truth?
I would like to correct. Yeah, please go on.
What was established as truth was found to be not truth after more research and more findings have been revealed. So I'm just concerned that the C to A process is a process of establishing truth, right? And just something to think about for everyone. When we talk about the combination of the synthesis of the Vedic and the modern science, are we bringing Vedic into modern science, or are we bringing modern science into Vedic? Yeah, just something to think about. Thank you for the opportunity.
So in my next slide, I can relate your question to this particular slide. I think so. What you told as the first, we are actually trying to bring the Vedic we need to bring Vedic concepts in order to better understand the system. That is all what I wanted to point out. And taking intake or treating the conclusive knowledge that is presented in our scripture, or you can say the Vedic scripture, treating that as a literature, a research literature, would help to some extent. But as I pointed out in my slides also, that there is a barrier to this also, because there is a different difference in the way we look at the reality in the two disciplines. That also has to be reconciliated at some stage.
Thank you for your answer. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for this wonderful question and the follow-up discussion. So I'd like to request Radhika Balagani, please unmute yourself and pose your question.
Namaste. Just in line with the previous question, you have indicated in one of your slides that the Vedic science is more of a descending process, and the scientific research as an ascending process. But my understanding of scientific research is basically based on the direct perception, which is the outer reality, like, involving our senses, which is in a way the knowledge is kind of limited. But the Vedic discipline, on the other hand, which is based on the source of the knowledge, or the Vedas, from which, and it is more of like a experiential science, so which is more of like a inner reality, connected with the inner reality. So so how would you just I couldn't understand why you call it as a descending process and an ascending process. If you could throw some light on that.
So one way that I look at it is I'll show that slide. So this is one of the terminologies that we have while talking about these two disciplines, the Avaroha Pantha and I'm not able to recall those terms, but the English term for those was So these are basically the litmus words. And why we usually call this as descending processes, like this knowledge that we receive from Vedas is basically realized, and so the all levels of this. So in the modern science, the three, if you look at these three stages, all these three stages have been cleared before we receive that knowledge. So that is after, and only after that does a disciple or a shishya receives that knowledge. So that is one reason why we call that as descending. So that knowledge is basically perfect. It does not require any revisiting of or any newer angle to be explored. that is one reason maybe we call it as descending process.
Yes, thank you so much. Now, there's a question in chat by Nikunj Tyagi. I'd like to ask on behalf of Nikunj. He says, can you please explain much briefly how you use Vedic information for studying biomolecular interaction computationally?
Computation. Yeah, yeah, this was one of the system that I could relate with. So if we look at this properties of kapha, especially this oily and slimy and immobile and viscous, these properties of kapha, if you look at, you have these various cholesterols in our body, which are basically HDL, LDL, IDL, and very low density lipoproteins. So this is one of the systems that we have been like simulating also, and also we have been studying them experimentally. So this is one of the systems which actually which we have studied in our lab, and I could relate this with kapha. That was one of the reasons why I just wanted to point out that it is possible to simulate certain systems which actually represent the kapha property, or represent the kapha, or perform the kapha functionality. We can come up with such simulation boxes that you can see in this simulation, computer simulation, which actually performs the which is basically performing the important function of like ion channels. So these things, I guess, can be related. So these things are quite prevalent in the current scenario, the current biophysical scenario, and we can connect them and better understand using these concepts of kapha and pitta and vata. That is like one speculative. I would call it still a knowledge in the speculative stage, or speculative stage. Understanding. So that is what I wanted to point out, that it is possible to study them in our simulations and perform analysis on them and study them.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to ask Divi Srivastav to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, good evening, sir. So my doubt is on the slide that shows that Vedas is a descending process, while the another one is the ascending one. According to me, this shows that there's a huge difference like between both of them. But then what I think is there is no conflict between Vedas and the current day science on any of the major aspects of cosmic science. Well, the only difference being Vedas were revealed to the intellect and the current day science is discovered by brain. So may I know your views on this?
What I wanted to point out in this is basically people go to such extent of calling Vedic as pseudoscience or things like that. So that is one of the reasons why I chose to pick up this epistemological angle and try to show that there is similarity in both. We have to go through this research literature. We have to receive shabda, then we have to undergo this hypothesizing and theorizing stage, and we have to undergo this anuman. So these common traits that we have in the two disciplines, that is something actually guarantees that the knowledge that we are receiving from the Vedic angle or the Vedic source is also scientific, because it also requires all these validation and finally the experiential, as one of the ma'am had pointed out, that that experimental and experiential knowledge is ultimately required. So that was one of the comment that I wanted to make about this ascending and descending process. There are both the system, and both of scientific. We cannot call any one of them as pseudo-scientific, or we should take good of both. That is what I wanted to point out.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we have one more question from Niket Kumar Jha. Please, you can unmute yourself and pose your question. Niket.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, my question is like how the truth from Vedas is from Vedas scriptures get validated, and how the authors' work are based on truth, means how it is validated through simulation and experimentation.
I think
How it is done
your
actually,
network
and
connection is
also
not.
about this kappa function. Also.
I think your net connection
Yes,
is
can
not
you
very
hear?
good, but yeah, can you speak now? Or maybe you can type
Yes.
it. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe chat.
Yes, you can use the chat box so that
write the question in chat box.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. In the meantime, if anyone has any question, we can still take a few questions, I guess.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Okay, yes, sir. Actually, my question is like how truth from Vedas scriptures get validated through simulation and experimentation. Because the Vedas are like pre-accepted truth also from very olden days, like so many years are passed already, and we don't have so much authentication also about what is written. So how it is experimented and simulated in labs for the validation of truth? That was my question.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think you got
one.
my question.
Yeah. I got your question. So one of the clarification that I wanted to make is in this particular presentation, I'm mainly focusing on Ayurveda, and Ayurveda is actually quite well accepted. Even the various medicinal compositions that we make use of are also you have many evidence-based studies performed on those medicines. So it is in to some extent and is in line with the current scenario. So that is one. So what I wanted to point out is like we can focus on those aspects. We can start focusing on those aspects which are like more well established as of now, and we can do some state of the art research on the conclusions that are basically presented in those areas, one of which is Ayurveda.
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. Last call for any questions. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. Otherwise, you can always write it in the email ID which has been provided to you in the chat or also in your WhatsApp group. So if not, then I'd like to thank Mr. Dheeraj Dube for your wonderful presentation and also the follow-up discussion, which was also very nice. So then I think we can
Niket has raised his
okay,
hand
yes,
again.
yes, raised his once again. Okay, yes. Niket, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, sir. Sir, you told that you have studied about macromolecules in body, like proteins help in maintaining the cholesterol level, so as to optimize the overall body function. But like so many proteins, like say proteins, also can be harmful. Also, like in some way, like it becomes macromolecules and give complexion and decrease also to the age, and some become afterwards cancerous also. Like then how is it you are validating that proteins which you have studied only helps in maintaining and regulation of different body functions in that? Yes, sir. And sir, can
So the
you
protein
elaborate
that
more about like
that we
your
have studied.
research on macromolecules? Yes, sir.
Yeah. So Yeah, so one of the things that so this particular protein apolipo E, so the protein that I studied is E3, the apolipoprotein E3, and it is actually known for regulating this or playing an important role in the regulation of this various cholesterols. So my study was to like see what are the conformational changes that are happening to the protein. Like even in this slide also you can see initially the protein is like quite in a closed structure, and then it opens up and then finally it has a larger opened structure. So this was one of the study that we had made you in the and
Like
yeah,
because
regarding
my
the large
question is
molecule.
related. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
please go ahead.
Yes, like I was asking that in Ayurveda medicine system also we have to means take the in some particular quantity only, otherwise it causes different problems. Like if we take
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much of uh, that saline also in our food, and also it will reduce our water quantity level and causes dehydration. So means I
Yeah.
mean to say that in Ayurveda also different macromolecules.
I requested Aristotle Nandiji to please ask a question.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Just a quick question. I just want to understand: are you trying to validate the Vedic concepts, or are you trying to use the Vedic concepts to assist in your experimentation?
The second thing, I would say, point out the second thing. I'm trying to use the Vedic concepts to better understand the current system that we have in our hand. That is what I want to propose.
Okay, thank you. Because I misconstrued it as trying to validate, because I think that might be what DV.
That actually that will actually happen in the course of the research, the validation of this particular knowledge system, that if it is so this is like one of the thing that my boss also says, that what you have is what you have. So if your research like if you're honest enough in your research, that thing will ultimately appear in your research. That is uh, if there is a particular conclusion about kapha, suppose, that would appear in your research if you start using that concept, maybe.
Okay, so you're borrowing the Vedic concepts to assist in your research, right? That's what it is,
Correct.
actually. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Shravanji, would you like to ask a question now?
So, yeah, thank you, Dheeraj. So, yeah, I think our Professor Sudipto has worked on nanotechnology related to Ayurveda. So, do we have some idea over it? And
Yes.
yeah, maybe you can share some thoughts on that. And and I have heard that some a new field has come up in this Ayurveda, like Ayurgenomics. So maybe you can, if you have any idea regarding that, you can share some thoughts.
I'm really sorry, Prabhu. Actually, I don't have. I know of these three particular areas that were actually like discussed with me with Sudipto Ghosh sir. So I have very little knowledge on this nano technology side.
Okay, then yeah, I'd like to ask Nikhil to ask you a question.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, sir, for your nice presentation, for nice research vision. So I want to ask in your approach of grand integration approach. So I want to actually clarify, like if you, for example, if you want to study kapha effects, so you kapha is defined as water plus air.
Yeah.
Whereas in molecular biophysics or in science, the water is defined as H2O molecules, and Earth is
Yeah.
defined as uh, our Earth planet. So, how you actually
Yeah.
first understanding, like I want to understand how actually you would go on integrating with these definitions and how you would proceed. Like, because for studying these principles, we have to be clear with the definitions, right, at first.
Yeah, yeah. So that is why I chose this very simple description from this Ashtanga Hridayam. So this shloka basically actually tells you like what the matter that actually does this function of kapha. It has these properties. It is supposed to have these properties, and we can like these oily, slimy, cold, viscous, these things at least we have. Heavy, we have these definitions in the modern science also. We can describe these so like you have these different these different cholesterols. The HDL has a very large fraction of protein by weight in the entire complex, and the chylomicron, it has a very high fraction of triglycerides. Based on that, whether it has these properties or not, we can do these research.
Yeah, yeah. Good.
Yeah.
And one more question I want to ask, like in both the systems of knowledge, like if you consider, whereas in science we consider everything as the interaction of matter, whereas in Ayurveda we consider uh, things are interaction of matter plus interaction of some subtler aspects. So uh,
Yeah.
are we exploring in that direction also, like in the subtler aspect, or just we are focusing on interactions of, like how you are planning? Actually, I couldn't get that point. Yeah, thank you.
Actually, the moment we start borrowing these ideas of kapha, uh, uh, kapha will have certain properties, and the way we would be required is like to see if those properties are manifesting in our system that we are studying or not. So that is one way. Like I would like suggest at this point of time. I'm also like new to this research, so that is one way that we can go about. So one thing, like these particular properties that are mentioned should be there uh, when we call certain collection or a combination of matter in our simulation box to be kapha. It should have these properties. Then whether it performs its function of useful of storage of useful material for future use or not, that would be the second stage that we should look for. This is how I would suggest we should go about this.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, sir, for your ideas.
Yeah, very nice. So Niket, you have your hands raised, but I think your network is not very good. Can you switch off your video? Then it's better actually that way. Then you can ask question only with the audio. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, sir. Now I think you can hear me.
Yes, yes.
Yes, my question is related to Ayurvedic system. Like how much means we say that we have to take the Ayurvedic medicine in a particular quantity only, otherwise it will harm the body, or it may means not give very effective functionality. So since your research is mainly based on Ayurvedic system from Veda, can you tell about macromolecule level, like quantification also, like how it is done, that this much gram only we have to take or that much only for the medicinal herbs also? Means how is
I'm
it
really
related to
sorry.
the quantity?
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I cannot comment on this currently because I'm not very well versed with this dosage of medicines and all. But yeah, this is very important point that I just wanted to point out that this question, this argument is very commonly used by those who don't believe in Ayurveda. Is like there is no concept of dosage in Ayurveda. That is wrong. We do have some dosage and that a prescribed dosage for a particular patient. So that is a quite like a very important point that is made. But yeah, I won't be able to comment on how we would be like coming up with that like from our research. What we can do is like we can look up to simulate uh, the active. So my research basically is related with the interaction of a drug molecule with a particular target protein molecule or a target enzyme. So that kind of system, how a particular medicinal composition is, what kind of effect it is producing on the cell, that is something that we can actually look for.
Yes. Thank you so much. So now we'll take one last question and then so we'll proceed. So we have Radhika ji, please unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Sir, one small question. So this research that you're conducting on this apolipoprotein E, with respect to the kapha dosha, is it based on the previous literature that you have selected this kapha dosha?
I'm so I actually again I would like
Just
restrain
out of
myself
curiosity,
from.
sorry,
I
out
just
of curiosity.
wanted to point out. Yeah. No. It's completely fine. So so why I chose to connect these two is like the oily thing that is required for kapha, and the triglycerides and these the cholesterols and the phospholipids. These also have this oily and viscous nature. So that was one of the reasons why I tried. Tried some mimicking some parallel between these two. Maybe I'm like wrong in making this parallel.
Yeah, because
But
I read
yeah,
I read
this is just
somewhere.
I wanted to. Yeah.
Sorry. Please go ahead.
Yeah, please, ma'am. Please, ma'am. Please go ahead.
No,
Please go
because
ahead. It's okay.
this is what I read. Like the kapha prakriti groups have a number of biochemical differences apart from the pitta and vata. So I was just curious to know that. So it's fine. It's fine, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for the nice lecture.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Indeed, yes, it was a very nice lecture and a very nice follow-up discussion. So many thanks to Dheeraj for your wonderful presentation, and also I see all these works certainly moving in the very nice direction would inspire a lot of our participants today. Thank you so much.